The afternoon sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows of Vincent Romano's private office, casting golden light across the mahogany desk that cost more than most people earned in a year. Maya Johnson moved her cleaning cloth in careful, practiced circles, wiping dust from surfaces that were already pristine, existing in that careful space between visibility and invisibility that all good domestic workers learn to occupy. She had perfected the art over 6 months of working at the Romano estate. Come in at 7 a.m., clean the assigned rooms, never look at the papers scattered across desks, never react to phone conversations about shipments and territories and deals that definitely weren't legal. Keep your head down, your mouth shut, and your past buried where no one would ever find it. At 43 years old, Maya had rebuilt herself from ashes. The woman who now wore a simple black uniform and kept her natural hair pulled back in a neat bun bore little resemblance to the ambitious attorney who had once worn designer suits and argued cases in federal court. That woman was dead, destroyed 3 years ago by people who were supposed to be on her side. This woman, Maya Johnson, domestic worker, was all that remained. And she had accepted that, made peace with it, until today. Her eyes caught on a document lying open on Vincent's desk. She shouldn't look. She never looked. But the legal language in the third paragraph made her breath catch in her throat, made her heart hammer against her ribs with a recognition that felt like drowning. Section 9, subsection D. The arbitration clause. No, this can't be right. Maya's hands trembled as she set down her cleaning supplies. Her mind, trained by 7 years at one of Atlanta's most prestigious law firms, 7 years she had tried desperately to forget, began analyzing the contract automatically. The language looked standard on the surface. Dispute resolution, binding arbitration, standard legal terminology that most people would skim right past. But it wasn't standard. It was a trap. The arbitration requirement bound only the signatory, in this case, Vincent Romano, to resolve disputes through arbitration with an arbitrator selected by the other party. But the reciprocal language was missing. The other party, someone named Marcus Delgado, could sue Vincent in any court they chose, while Vincent would be locked into arbitration with an arbitrator Delgado himself would select. It was brilliant. Invisible, unless you knew exactly what to look for, and Maya knew because she had seen this exact poisoned language before. She had seen it destroy someone's entire business, watched it drain millions from a company that thought they were signing a fair deal. She had seen it because 3 years ago, she had been the one to identify it, and reporting it had cost her everything. "Are you still here?" Maya jumped, her cleaning cloth falling to the floor. Vincent Romano stood in the doorway, 6'3" of controlled power in a charcoal suit that probably cost $8,000. His dark eyes swept the room with the casual authority of a man who owned everything he surveyed, landing on her with the kind of indifference he might show a piece of furniture. I was just finishing, Mr. Romano." Maya bent quickly to retrieve her cloth. Praying he hadn't noticed her staring at his private documents, praying her face didn't betray the alarm bells screaming in her mind. But as she straightened, something in her chest cracked. She looked at this man who had been nothing but professional to her in 6 months, who paid her fairly, who never made her feel less than human the way some employers did, and she thought about what would happen when he signed that contract, how Marcus Delgado would use those hidden clauses to destroy him, exactly the way they were designed to do. She thought about staying silent, about finishing her cleaning and walking away, about protecting the invisible life she had built from the wreckage of her real one. The words came out before she could stop them. "Mr. Romano, I'm sorry, but that arbitration clause is a trap." The silence that followed felt like the moment before a car crash, that suspended second when you know impact is coming but can't do anything to stop it. Vincent's expression, polite and dismissive, froze on his face. Then slowly, impossibly, it changed into something else, something cold and sharp and dangerous. "What did you just say?" Maya's survival instinct screamed at her to backtrack, to apologize, to run. But another part of her, the part that had spent 3 years choking on injustice and silence, refused to bow. Section 9, subsection D, she said quietly, forcing her voice steady even as her hands shook. The arbitration language. It looks standard, but it's not. It's one-sided. You're bound to arbitration with an arbitrator Marcus Delgado chooses, but he can sue you in any court he wants. The reciprocal language is missing. All parties shall be bound, versus any party may seek. It's deliberate. You sign this, you're giving him complete control over any dispute. Vincent stared at her. Really looked at her for the first time since she'd started working for him. His jaw tightened. Something shifted in his dark eyes, recognition of intelligence where he'd assumed there was only subservience. "Who are you?" he asked slowly, his voice dropping to that lethal whisper that made even his most dangerous associates nervous. Maya felt the wall she'd built between her past and present crumbling, felt 3 years of carefully constructed invisibility dissolving under his gaze. "I'm your housekeeper," she whispered, but they both knew that wasn't true anymore. Vincent crossed the room in 3 swift steps, standing close enough that she could smell his cologne, sandalwood, and something darker, more dangerous. He picked up the contract, his eyes never leaving her face. "Sit down," he commanded, gesturing to the leather chair across from his desk, the same chair where she had seen him conduct million-dollar negotiations, where men in expensive suits had sat and tried to hide their fear. "Mr. Romano, I should go. I shouldn't have said anything. Sit down." Not a request. Maya's legs obeyed before her mind could protest. She sank into the chair, her worn cleaning uniform a stark contrast to the luxury surrounding her. Vincent moved around the desk, but instead of sitting behind it in the position of power, he pulled a chair beside her. Close. Too close. "You're going to tell me your real name," he said quietly. "You're going to tell me how a housekeeper recognizes legal language that most attorneys would miss, and then you're going to read this entire contract and tell me every other trap hiding in it." "I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will." Vincent's voice carried absolute authority. "Because if you're right about this clause, there's a reason you know it, and I'm going to find out what that reason is." Maya looked at this man who could destroy her with a phone call, who operated in a world of violence and power and absolute control. She thought about the secret she'd buried, about the prestigious law firm that had framed her, destroyed her reputation, and stolen her entire career, about the powerful people who wanted to keep her silent. She thought about staying invisible, about protecting herself. But then she looked at the contract, at those poisoned clauses that would destroy Vincent Romano exactly the way they'd been designed to, and she realized that some things mattered more than safety. "My name is Maya Elizabeth Johnson," she said quietly. 7 years ago, I was a senior associate at Brennan & Associates, one of the top corporate law firms in Atlanta. I specialized in contract law and mergers and acquisitions. Vincent's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "What happened?" Maya took a shaky breath. "The same thing that's about to happen to you. I found a contract full of traps just like this one. I reported it to protect my client, and my own firm destroyed me for it." The silence stretched between them, loaded with implications neither of them was ready to speak aloud. "Tell me everything," Vincent said. "And then we're going to figure out who's trying to trap me and why they made the mistake of thinking I'd be an easy target." Maya met his eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Not anger at her deception, but recognition, understanding, maybe even respect. "The firm that drafted your contract," she said quietly, "is Brennan & Associates, my old firm. And the attorney who wrote those poisoned clauses is Gregory Brennan himself. I'd recognize his signature work anywhere." Vincent's hand curled into a fist on the desk. "The same people who destroyed you are coming for me." "Yes, and they'll use that contract to do it. Unless—" Maya stopped, uncertainty flooding through her. "Unless what?" "Unless you let me help you," Maya finished, her voice barely a whisper. "Unless you let me stop them from doing to you what they did to me." Vincent Romano smiled then. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just found an unexpected advantage. "Oh, they're not going to destroy me, Maya Elizabeth Johnson," he said softly. Because now I have something they never expected, a brilliant lawyer who knows exactly how they operate, someone who has every reason to want revenge. He stood, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Antonio, cancel my meeting with Marcus Delgado. Tell him I need another week to review the contract. He paused. And get me everything. Personnel files, case histories, financial records, on Brennan and Associates. I want to know every skeleton in their closet. Vincent ended the call and turned back to Maya. You saved me today, in my world. A debt like that doesn't go unpaid. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me your whole story. Then you're going to help me destroy the people who destroyed you. And when we're done, Maya Johnson, you're going to practice law again, this time with protection they can never break. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. 3 years of silence, of shame, of believing she deserved what happened to her. 3 years of invisible labor and swallowed rage, all of it cracking open at this dangerous man's words. They'll come after me, she whispered, when they find out I'm helping you, when they realize I can expose them. Let them try. Vincent's voice dropped to that lethal whisper. I've built an empire by protecting what's mine, and you, Maya Johnson, are now under my protection. Anyone who touches you answers to me. In that moment, everything changed. The invisible Maid was invisible no more, and Brennan and Associates was about to discover they'd made a fatal mistake 3 years ago. They hadn't destroyed Maya Johnson. They'd forged her into something far more dangerous. And now, with Vincent Romano's power behind her, justice was finally coming. Vincent gestured to the contract still lying on his desk. Read it. All of it. Tell me every trap they've hidden. Maya's hands trembled as she pulled the document closer, but as her eyes scanned the legal language, something shifted inside her. The fear receded, replaced by the sharp focus she'd thought she'd lost forever. This was who she was, not a housekeeper pretending to be invisible, but an attorney who could dissect contracts like a surgeon performing an operation. Section 4, she began, her voice growing steadier. The payment terms. Initial payment of $10 million is clear, but the additional compensation tied to performance metrics to be mutually agreed upon, that's a time bomb. No definition of metrics, no process for agreement, no resolution if you dispute them. Delgado can claim you failed to meet standards you never agreed to, withhold payment, and sue you for breach. Vincent's expression darkened. Continue. Section 12. The liability provisions. All risk transfers to you. Any legal issues that arise, even ones Delgado causes, become your responsibility. And Section 15, Maya's voice hardened. The indemnification clause. You're required to defend and compensate Delgado for any lawsuits, investigations, or regulatory actions related to this deal, even if he's the one who violated the law. For 20 minutes, Maya tore the contract apart, exposing trap after trap. By the time she finished, Vincent's jaw was clenched so tightly she could see the muscle jumping. This entire contract is designed to destroy me, he said quietly. Yes, whoever drafted this is exceptional. The language looks clean on the surface. Most attorneys would approve it. But underneath, it's a masterclass in legal manipulation. Vincent stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Marcus Delgado has been a business associate for 3 years. This partnership was supposed to expand my legitimate holdings, help me transition some operations into legal territory. My lawyers reviewed this contract, 2 of them from different firms. Both approved it. They're either incompetent or compromised, Maya said flatly. This level of sophistication doesn't happen by accident. You sound very certain. Vincent turned to face her. Because this has happened to you before. It wasn't a question. Maya felt the weight of her buried past pressing against her chest, demanding to be released after 3 years of silence. 7 years ago, I was assigned to a major acquisition deal, she said quietly. Tech company buying out a competitor. I reviewed the merger contracts and found exactly this kind of poisoned language, brilliant, nearly invisible traps that would have destroyed both companies and exposed our client to massive liability. You reported it. I reported it to Gregory Brennan himself. I thought I was protecting the firm, protecting the client. I thought I was doing the right thing. Maya's laugh was bitter. I rewrote every clause, fixed every trap, worked 72 hours straight to make the contracts clean. I submitted the corrected version to Brennan personally. Vincent returned to the chair beside her, his complete attention focused on her face. What did he do? 2 weeks later, I was called into a meeting. Brennan, his senior partners, and their head of security. They accused me of creating the flawed contracts, said I'd tried to sabotage the deal. Maya's hands clenched in her lap. They had emails with my name, documents with my electronic signature, everything. I tried to defend myself, but I was one senior associate against the entire leadership of the firm. They framed you perfectly. They gave me a choice: resign quietly with a severance package, and they wouldn't report me to the state bar or fight them, and they'd destroy my career and reputation completely. Tears burned in Maya's eyes. I had law school debt, no family, no resources to fight. I signed their agreement, NDAs, non-disparagement clauses, everything. They paid me 3 months' salary and gave me a reference that said I'd resigned to pursue other opportunities. And then they blacklisted you. I applied to 63 firms over 6 months. No one would hire me. I finally learned that Brennan had quietly spread rumors: unstable, unreliable, not fit for serious legal work. I couldn't get hired as a paralegal or a legal secretary. I couldn't even get a job at a coffee shop near a courthouse. Maya's voice broke. So I became invisible, changed my resume, left off my law degree, everything that connected me to that world. I became just another black woman cleaning houses to survive. Vincent's hand curled into a fist. For 3 years, I told myself it was enough, that I'd just exist and try to forget. Maya finally met his eyes. Until I saw your contract and recognized Gregory Brennan's signature traps, the same ones they framed me for creating. He's the one who drafted the Delgado contract. I'd stake my life on it, and I'm betting he's using the same playbook: trap you with the contract, then blackmail or destroy you when you realize what you've signed. Vincent pulled out his phone. Antonio, I need everything on Gregory Brennan. Personal life, business dealings, every client, every case, every transaction, and find out if Marcus Delgado has any connection to Brennan and Associates. He paused. Also, I need 7 people contacted, former Brennan associates, all women, all left the firm under suspicious circumstances. Names to follow. He ended the call and looked at Maya. You weren't their only victim, were you? No. Maya's voice was hollow. I found articles over the years, at least 6 other women, all brilliant attorneys, all destroyed by sudden accusations of misconduct, all disappeared from the legal profession. Where are they now? Working retail, bartending, one left the country entirely, and one— Maya's voice cracked. One committed suicide 8 months after leaving the firm. The silence that followed was heavy with rage and grief. Vincent stood slowly, moved to his desk, and made another call. Clear my schedule for the next month. Everything. This is now my only priority. He hung up and turned to Maya. You're not going back to housekeeping. As of right now, you work for me as my legal counsel. Real position, real salary, real office, and we're going to destroy Brennan and Associates so completely that they'll never hurt anyone again. Maya stood, her legs unsteady. They have connections, judges, politicians, other firms. They've been doing this for years. And I have resources they can't imagine? Vincent's voice was cold steel. They're about to learn what happens when they target someone under my protection. He extended his hand. Are you with me, Maya Johnson? Maya looked at his hand, at this dangerous man offering her something no one else ever had, the chance to fight back, the chance for justice. She took his hand. I'm with you. Good. Because tomorrow, we start building a trap that will make theirs look like amateur hour. 3 months later, Maya sat behind her own desk in Vincent's estate, surrounded by law books, 3 monitors displaying contract analysis software, and a stack of documents that would have made Brennan and Associates weep with envy. Her natural hair, no longer pulled back in that severe bun, framed her face in elegant twists. She wore a tailored charcoal suit that Vincent had insisted on purchasing. My counsel represents me, he'd said. You need to look the part. But the real transformation wasn't the clothes or the office. It was the light in her eyes, the confidence in her posture, the way she moved through the world like she deserved space again. "You're smiling," Vincent said, entering with 2 cups of coffee. He set one on her desk, cream with 1 sugar, exactly how she liked it. He always noticed. "Gregory Brennan just approved our contract," Maya said, turning her monitor toward him. "He didn't catch a single trap." Over the past 3 months, they'd worked together to create something beautiful, a seemingly legitimate real estate development deal between Vincent's company and a venture capital firm. The contracts were pristine, professional, balanced, profitable for both parties. Brennan and Associates had been hired by the VC firm to review the deal. Hidden inside those perfect contracts were 9 nearly invisible clauses, each one a masterpiece of legal manipulation that would slowly transfer control and liability entirely onto the VC firm, and by extension, onto Brennan and Associates themselves. "Show me," Vincent said, moving to stand beside her desk. Maya pulled up the email chain. Brennan personally reviewed the contracts, called them exemplary work, and completely clean. He billed the VC firm $85,000 for his review. In 4 months, when the first liability trigger hits, the VC firm will sue Brennan for malpractice and will have documentation proving he deliberately ignored obvious warning signs. The same way he framed you. Exactly, but this time there are witnesses, paper trails, undeniable evidence. Maya's voice was steady, powerful. "And the other victims are ready." "All of them?" "6 women. I've been working with them quietly. They're prepared to come forward once Brennan's reputation starts cracking. The NDAs they signed were procured through fraud, unconscionable and unenforceable. I have the legal precedents ready." Vincent's hand rested on her shoulder, a gesture that had become familiar over these months. "You've built something remarkable, Maya." Something had shifted between them during their late nights working together. It was there in the way he brought her coffee without asking, in how he'd canceled meetings with dangerous men because she needed his input on a contract. It was there in the careful respect he showed her intelligence, in how he never made her feel less than despite their different worlds. "We're going to destroy them," Maya said, looking up at him, "completely, legally, publicly." "I never doubted it." Vincent's dark eyes held hers. "You're brilliant, Maya. And watching you rebuild yourself, watching you take back your power, it's been an honor." The air between them shifted, charged with something neither had acknowledged aloud. "Vincent," Maya said quietly, "why are you really doing this? This war with Brennan, it's cost you time, money, resources. You could have just avoided Delgado and moved on." He was quiet for a moment, his hand still on her shoulder. "Because I've spent my entire life in a world where power means everything and loyalty means nothing, where people betray you for profit or fear. And then I met a woman who risked everything twice, once to protect her client, once to protect me, just because it was right." His voice dropped lower. "You reminded me that honor still exists, Maya, and I'm not letting anyone hurt you ever again." Maya stood, close enough now to see the intensity in his eyes, to feel the heat of his presence. "I'm falling for you," she whispered, the truth escaping before she could stop it. "I know that's complicated." "Complicated, yes." Vincent's hand came up, gentle fingers tracing her jawline. "But stupid? Never. I started falling for you the moment you looked me in the eye and told me my contract was a trap." When he kissed her, it was tender at first, a question rather than a demand. But when Maya responded, rising on her toes to wrap her arms around his neck, the kiss deepened into something that felt like promise, like home, like everything she'd thought she'd lost. "We're going to destroy them together," Vincent murmured against her lips. "And then we're going to build something real." "Yes," Maya breathed, "together." But the final confrontation was still to come. And when Gregory Brennan discovered who had orchestrated his downfall, when he realized the unstable associate he'd destroyed was now the brilliant legal mind protecting Vincent Romano, the explosion would be spectacular. Justice was coming, and this time, Maya wouldn't be silenced. 2 weeks later, Maya was working late in her office when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost ignored it, had learned over the years to avoid mysterious calls, but something made her answer. Maya Johnson. Silence on the other end, then heavy breathing. "I know who you are." Her blood went cold. The voice was distorted, electronically altered, but the threat was clear. "You think you're clever, hiding behind Vincent Romano, but we know what you're doing. We know about the contract. We know about the other women." The voice paused. "Drop it now, or what happened to Jennifer Mills will happen to you." Jennifer Mills, the attorney from Brennan and Associates who had committed suicide. The line went dead. Maya's hands shook as she set down the phone. Vincent appeared in her doorway seconds later, as if he'd sensed something wrong. "What happened?" His eyes scanned her face, reading the fear she couldn't hide. "Someone knows." Maya's voice was barely steady. "About the trap, about the other victims. They threatened me. They mentioned Jennifer Mills by name." Vincent's expression went cold, deadly. He pulled out his phone, pressed a single button. "Antonio, Maya just received a threat. I want her apartment swept for surveillance, her phone records pulled, and security doubled on this estate. Now." He moved to Maya's side, his hand firm on her shoulder. "Tell me exactly what they said." Maya repeated the conversation, watching Vincent's jaw tighten with each word. When she finished, he made another call. "Luca, I need you here. We have a security situation." He listened for a moment. "No, not me. Maya. And Luca? Whoever made this threat needs to understand what happens when someone threatens what's mine." The possessiveness in his voice should have been alarming. Instead, Maya felt something loosen in her chest, the fear giving way to the knowledge that she wasn't alone anymore, wasn't unprotected. "They're getting desperate," Vincent said, ending the call. "Which means we're close. Which means they're afraid. Or it means they're about to do something terrible." Maya stood, pacing to the window. "Vincent, Jennifer Mills didn't commit suicide. I never believed it. She was found in her apartment, pills and alcohol. The police ruled it suicide, but she was murdered." Vincent's voice was flat, certain. "And they're threatening to do the same to you. We should stop. Pull back. This isn't worth—" "No." Vincent crossed the room, taking her shoulders in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "We don't stop. We don't pull back. We finish this. But we do it my way now, which means you don't leave this estate without armed security. You don't take calls from unknown numbers. You don't go anywhere alone. Vincent, I can't live like a prisoner. You won't live at all if Gregory Brennan decides you're too dangerous to leave alive." His voice was harsh, but his hands were gentle. "Maya, I've lost people I cared about because I underestimated threats. I'm not losing you." The raw emotion in his voice stopped her protests. She saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before, not just protectiveness, but fear. Real fear that something might happen to her. "Okay," she whispered. "We do it your way." Antonio arrived within the hour with a full security team. They swept Maya's apartment, found 3 listening devices and a camera hidden in her bedroom. Someone had been watching her for weeks, maybe months. "Brennan's people," Antonio reported, his voice grim. "Professional-grade surveillance. They know everything. Your routine, your work, your connection to Vincent." Vincent's expression could have frozen fire. "Then it's time they learned what happens when you threaten my family." He turned to Maya. "The trap we built for Brennan. We're accelerating it. No more waiting for the liability triggers. We're going to expose everything now, publicly, before he has time to eliminate witnesses." "How?" Maya asked. "You said 6 women are ready to come forward. We're going to give them a platform they can't ignore, a press conference, legal filings, federal investigators. We're going to bury Brennan and Associates so completely that threatening you will be the least of their problems." Vincent pulled out his phone, began making calls. Maya watched him mobilize resources she could barely comprehend. Journalists, prosecutors, private investigators, all moving at his command. "Vincent," she said quietly, and he paused, phone still to his ear. "Thank you for protecting me, for believing me." "Always," he said simply. Then back into the phone. "I want federal prosecutors briefed by morning. Yes, I know it's late. I don't care. This is priority one." Over the next 12 hours, Vincent Romano transformed from businessman to warrior. He didn't just protect Maya, he declared war. Every resource at his disposal focused on one goal: destroying Brennan and Associates before they could hurt Maya or anyone else. But Gregory Brennan wasn't going to go down without a fight, and when desperate men felt cornered, they became dangerous. The real battle was just beginning. And this time, the stakes weren't just careers or reputations. This time, someone might not survive. The press conference took place 72 hours later in a federal courthouse conference room. Maya stood behind a podium, flanked by 6 women who looked like her. Professional, composed, carrying the weight of injustice that had tried to break them, but failed. Television cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled every seat. And in the front row, Vincent sat with his attorney and a federal prosecutor who'd been very interested in what Maya had to say about systematic fraud at one of Atlanta's most prestigious law firms. "My name is Maya Elizabeth Johnson," she began, her voice clear and steady. "7 years ago, I was a senior associate at Brennan and Associates. I was framed for creating fraudulent contracts, forced to resign, and systematically blacklisted from practicing law." She paused, meeting the cameras head on. "I'm here today because I'm not the only one. The women standing with me, Rachel Morrison, Lisa Chen, Keisha Williams, Amanda Foster, Sarah Rodriguez, and Jennifer Park, all experienced the same pattern of abuse, false accusations, forced resignations, and career destruction." One by one, the women stepped forward to share their stories. Rachel, who'd been accused of embezzling client funds she'd never touched. Lisa, who'd reported a senior partner's sexual harassment and found herself unemployed 3 weeks later. Keisha, who'd discovered billing fraud and was labeled mentally unstable. Each story was different in details, but identical in structure. Brilliant women who'd found wrongdoing, reported it, and been destroyed for their integrity. "Brennan and Associates has operated this scheme for over 15 years, Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. "They create fraudulent contracts designed to trap clients. When attorneys within the firm discover these traps and report them, they're framed, discredited, and eliminated. The firm then uses those same fraudulent contracts to blackmail or sue their clients for millions." She pulled out a document, held it up to the cameras. "This is a contract drafted by Gregory Brennan himself 3 months ago. It contains the exact same poisoned clauses I was accused of creating 7 years ago. The same clauses found in contracts that destroyed 3 major companies and generated $47 million in settlements for Brennan and Associates." The room erupted in questions. Maya let them come, answered each one with the precision of someone who'd spent 3 months building an airtight case. "Do you have proof?" a reporter shouted. "We have emails, contract drafts with tracked changes, testimony from former clients, and financial records showing a pattern of fraudulent billing and settlement manipulation." Maya's eyes found the federal prosecutor. "All of which has been turned over to the U.S. Attorney's Office?" "Why come forward now?" "Because Gregory Brennan threatened my life 2 weeks ago. Because Jennifer Mills, one of the attorneys who tried to expose this fraud, is dead, and I don't believe her death was suicide. Because silence protects predators, and I'm done being silent." The questions continued for another 30 minutes. Then Maya stepped away from the podium, Vincent immediately at her side, his hand at the small of her back, his presence a wall of protection. "That was perfect," he murmured. "You were perfect." But Maya's attention was caught by a commotion at the back of the room. Federal agents in suits were entering, and between them, in handcuffs, walked Gregory Brennan. His face was red with rage, his expensive suit rumpled. When his eyes found Maya, the hatred there was pure and venomous. "You," he spat, "you were nothing. You were a mistake I corrected, and now you've aligned yourself with a criminal." He jerked his head toward Vincent. "Thinking that makes you powerful?" Vincent moved forward, but Maya put a hand on his arm, stopping him. This moment was hers. "You didn't correct a mistake, Mr. Brennan," Maya said quietly, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. You destroyed an innocent woman because she threatened your criminal enterprise, but you made one critical error. She stepped closer to him, meeting his eyes with absolute certainty. You underestimated how long I'd survive, how strong I'd become, and you never considered that one day someone with real power would believe me and give me the resources to prove everything. Brennan lunged toward her, but the federal agents held him back. This isn't over, he snarled. My attorneys will— Your attorneys are being investigated too, the federal prosecutor interrupted, stepping forward. Gregory Brennan, you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, witness intimidation, and conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Jennifer Mills. The last charge made Brennan's face go white. That's insane! I had nothing to do with— We have phone records, financial transfers, and testimony from the man you hired. The prosecutor's voice was cold. You're done, Mr. Brennan. As the agents led him away, Brennan's eyes locked on Maya one last time. She saw the moment he truly understood. This wasn't just about revenge or justice. This was about a woman he'd thought he'd destroyed rising from ashes to become his destruction. The media swarmed as Maya left the courthouse, but Vincent's security team cleared a path. In the car, finally alone, Maya let out a shaky breath. It's really over, she whispered. Vincent pulled her close. The legal battle is just beginning. But yes, the part where you were afraid, where you had to hide, that's over. You won, Maya. She looked up at him, this dangerous man who'd given her back herself. We won. We won, he agreed, and kissed her with a tenderness that made her believe in futures she'd thought were impossible. But winning came with costs. Over the next week, as the case against Brennan and Associates exploded across national news, Maya received death threats from Brennan's associates. The firm's senior partners were indicted. 3 judges who'd been taking bribes resigned. 2 other law firms were investigated for similar schemes. The legal profession was in chaos. And Maya Johnson stood at the center of it all, no longer invisible, no longer silent, no longer afraid. She'd survived being destroyed once. Now she was helping destroy those who'd built their empire on ruining lives. And with Vincent Romano beside her, she knew she'd never be vulnerable again. The headline in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution read, "Former invisible housekeeper, now leading attorney in corporate fraud cases." Maya smiled as she set down the newspaper, looking around her new office. Not at Vincent's estate, though she still worked closely with him, but in her own law firm. Johnson & Associates occupied the 15th floor of a downtown building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city that had once chewed her up and spit her out. Now she owned a piece of it. Still reading your own press? Vincent's voice came from the doorway, warm with affection. He wore a charcoal suit, looking every bit the legitimate businessman he'd been working to become, transitioning more of his operations into legal territory, using Maya's legal expertise to navigate the complicated path from his past to a cleaner future. Can you blame me? Maya gestured to the article. 3 years ago, I was scrubbing toilets and trying not to starve. Now I'm on the cover of legal magazines. Vincent crossed the room, perching on the edge of her desk with the easy familiarity of someone who belonged in her space. You were always this person. You just needed someone to see you again. I needed you. Maya stood, moving into his arms with the natural grace of 18 months together. I needed someone who believed me when no one else would. And I needed someone who reminded me that power should protect people, not just serve itself. Vincent kissed her forehead. We saved each other, Maya. The past 18 months had been a whirlwind. Gregory Brennan had been sentenced to 23 years in federal prison for fraud, racketeering, witness intimidation, and conspiracy to commit murder. The evidence against him in Jennifer Mills's death had been overwhelming. Phone records showing calls to a known hitman, financial transfers that couldn't be explained, and testimony from his own security contractor who'd flipped for immunity. Brennan and Associates had collapsed spectacularly. The firm filed for bankruptcy within 6 months. Senior partners were disbarred, indicted, or both. Their clients had fled, their reputation destroyed, their legacy reduced to a cautionary tale about corruption and greed. The other women, Rachel, Lisa, Keisha, Amanda, Sarah, and Jennifer's sister, had all been vindicated. The state bar had restored their licenses with formal apologies. 3 of them now worked at Maya's firm. 2 had opened their own practices. 1 had joined the U.S. Attorney's Office to prosecute corporate fraud. They'd all survived. They'd all rebuilt. And they'd done it together. The Martinez case settled this morning, Maya said, pulling back to look at Vincent. $18 million for our client. The opposing law firm tried to use hidden arbitration clauses exactly like Brennan's playbook. I tore their contract apart in depositions. You're terrifying in depositions. Vincent's smile was proud. I've watched the videos. You've watched videos of my depositions. I'm obsessed with you. It's a whole thing. He pulled her closer. Besides, I like watching you destroy people who try to cheat my company. Maya laughed, the sound free and genuine, so different from the careful, muted person she'd been when she worked as his housekeeper. Your company. Our company, technically. Since you made me general counsel. Best decision I ever made. Well, second best. Vincent's expression turned serious. The best decision was walking into my study that day and actually listening when you told me I was about to make a terrible mistake. And the best decision I made was speaking up instead of staying silent. Maya's hand came up to cup his face. Even though I was terrified. Even though I thought it might cost me everything. Instead, it gave you everything back. Vincent reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Which brings me to why I'm actually here in the middle of your workday. Maya's breath caught. Vincent? I know we said we'd take things slow. I know we've only been together 18 months, and conventional wisdom says that's too soon. He opened the box, revealing a diamond ring that caught the afternoon light streaming through her windows. But I've never done anything conventionally, and I'm not starting now. He slid off the desk, taking her hand. Maya Elizabeth Johnson, you're the strongest, most brilliant person I've ever met. You saved my business, then you saved my soul. You reminded me what honor looks like, what justice means, what it feels like to protect someone instead of just possessing them. His voice softened. I love you completely. I want to build a life with you. Not in the shadows of my old world, but in the light you've helped me find. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Maya's face, but she was smiling. You're asking me in my office? During business hours? I'm asking you in the office you built, in the life you reclaimed. At the moment you're standing at the top of the world you were told you'd never be part of again. Vincent's eyes held hers. I'm asking you as an equal, Maya, as a partner, as a man who knows exactly how strong you are and loves you for it. Yes. The word came out as a whisper, then stronger. Yes, I'll marry you. When he kissed her, it tasted like triumph and promise and futures they'd build together, not despite where they'd come from, but because of it. Later that evening, Maya stood at the window of her office, her new ring catching the light, looking out at Atlanta's skyline. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman in a tailored suit, natural hair styled elegantly, wearing the confidence of someone who'd survived being destroyed and emerged stronger. She thought about the woman she'd been, invisible, silent, afraid. She thought about scrubbing toilets and hiding her intelligence, about surviving on $15 and desperation. That woman had saved her, had kept her alive until she could become this version of herself. Maya pulled out her phone, texted the group chat with the other 6 women. He proposed. I said yes. The responses came immediately, all caps and exclamation points and celebration. These women who'd been broken by the same system, who'd found each other in shared pain and built shared strength. Her phone buzzed with one more message, this one from Vincent. Dinner at 8, celebrating my brilliant, beautiful fiancé. I love you. Maya smiled, typing back. I love you too. See you at home. Home. Not his estate or her apartment, but the penthouse they'd bought together 6 months ago. the space they shared as equals, as partners, as two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something unbreakable. She gathered her things, took one last look at her office, her firm, her dream, her proof that invisible women could become impossible to ignore, and headed home to the man who'd seen her when no one else would. Justice had been served, careers had been rebuilt, love had been found, and Maya Johnson, the housekeeper who was secretly a brilliant attorney, had become exactly what she was always meant to be, unstoppable.